Is it just me, or does the world feel like it's spinning faster than usual? As someone whose job it is to follow current events with a meticulous eye, I have to say I feel a little nuts. So if one more SCOTUS decision comes back today, I might have to pack up for the day and go fishing. But lucky for me, and hopefully for some of you too, our final guest today is going to help us find a little, well, refuge from all the craziness, or at least context for it, with her book, How to Stay Sane, the next installment of our School of Life philosophical self-help series. We've already talked about the books in that series, How to Be Alone, How to Age, and How to Think More About Sex. And now we're here to talk sanity with the psychotherapist Philippa Perry. Her book is called How to Stay Sane. How to Stay Sane. Welcome to WNYC.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
You have a definition of sanity? Can you actually tell us what sanity is?
Isn't that interesting that we're so good at defining what is crazy? I mean, we have the DSM, which is the textbook used by psychiatrists and the mental health profession, that gives you sort of a tick box way to say how mad and why we're mad. But they don't define sanity. Defining sanity is a very hard thing to do. We can say, if you hear voices, you're mad. Now, I don't follow that that's absolutely true, because unless we've got such a clear definition for sanity, how can we have such a clear definition for insanity?
So how close can you come?
Well, how close can I come to defining sanity? Well, I think if we start with insanity, I think there's two ways we can go mad. And one of them is to be too rigid, too inflexible, so that whatever's happening on the outside, you stay absolutely the same and you don't respond to it because you're so rigid and inflexible. So that's one way of being insane. And the other way of being insane is the exact opposite, really. It's being too chaotic. It's having no structure to support you, so you're all over the place. So I can define sanity by someone who has put enough structure on their chaos and enough flexibility on their rigidity to be somewhere in between. So you can stay grounded and yet go with the flow.
You write that your approach is influenced by neuroscience. So if we take Freud as our starting point of the invention of modern psychotherapy, how much has neuroscience, the scientific understanding of our brains, blown holes in what Freud started the field with?
Actually, they're quite close to each other. I mean, some of the things that Freud guessed from his qualitative research has, in fact, proven to be true with neuroscience. I'm not a neuroscientist, but for instance, we found out that we have a part of our brain that's just pure impulses, sometimes called the reptilian sort of brain, and we do cognitive thinking in another part of the brain, the frontal cortex, and we have feeling part of the brain as well. So there is an awful lot of our brains that we're not conscious of using, and we know that now. But Freud was the first person to really publicize this idea of the unconscious.
And you start with self-observation, and then go on to relating to others, stress, and personal narrative. Is personal narrative kind of the most practical sort of exercise that people can implement from this?
Well, I don't think I can really say that one sort of... I divided staying sane into 4 sections, and I wouldn't like to privilege one section above the other. I think if I had to, though, it would be relationships. Our relationships with other people is what keeps us sane. And one of the biggest stressors to the human psyche is, in fact, isolation, is loneliness. So, in order to stay sane, we need to stay in relationship with others, I think. So, I would possibly privilege that. When I talk about self-narrative, what I mean is that's the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. So that's how we think about ourselves. That's how we construct our identity. Um, and we can be flexible about this. Human beings are organic creatures, and we, grow and we change. And so how we think and how we talk about ourselves should grow and change too.
Listeners, we have 5 minutes. Anybody want to try your own definition of sanity? Since our guest is outraged that we define insanity all the time, but not sanity in the psychologist's DSM, etc., Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. 212-433-WNYC, 433-9692. But we just have a few minutes, so call up and take a stab at defining sanity if you dare. What did you want to say, Dr. Perry?
One of the things that sorry, is somebody else there?
No, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. One of the things that's often mistaken for sanity but isn't sanity is certainty. People like to be reassured, I think, by someone who sounds certain. And certainty can often sound like it's sane, but it's not. Uncertainty is usually a little bit more sane than certainty, because it allows for that flexibility. It allows for the unseen unknowns that are always there.
By that definition, almost every politician is insane, because if they're not sounding certain about their convictions, they're seen as wishy-washy or flip-floppers or not leaders.
This is a big problem, I think, because how can they know the future? How can they know all the, things that have not unfolded yet? And yet, as people that vote for them, we want to look up to politicians. We want to give them more power than they're actually capable of having, because really we all sort of hark back to a time when we might have felt safe, when we had a mummy and a daddy who seemed more certain than we were, looking after us. And I think a part of us doesn't want to grow up. So a part of us wants our politicians sane, but we're actually pushing them and co-creating a sort of insanity by feeling like that.
And so you may approve of one of the slogans that I use on this show, which is ambivalence welcome here, because
Lovely.
So much of the media, the political media, is a cult of certainty. But ambivalence will make you crazy too. Ed and Pelham, you have a way not to define sanity, right to the point?
Yes. Hello. Good morning.
Hi.
It's almost afternoon. I guess I would define it as we can sometimes define things by what they're not, and that is being well adjusted to a dysfunctional world.
Ah, right.
And so I would say,
if you're okay when the world is so dysfunctional,
right, that you accept things as they are, I think is a sign that you're, in a sense, malicious and not very sane. I think.
Thank you. I'm going to leave it there. We'll do one more. Steve in Brooklyn, your definition of sanity, right to the point.
Yes, it's a stable reference point on which to align the confusions of day-to-day life, but as well a tolerance for those confusions. Because if one is intolerant of confusion, they can be overwhelmed. But beyond that of just coping, you want to resolve these things by aligning them on certainties, on things that you know for sure.
Steve, you get the last word in today's show as we say goodbye to our stable reference point on sanity. Philippa Perry from the School of Life Philosophy series, her new book, How to Stay Sane. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.